podcast, we will be learning about reflex actions. Reflex actions allow us to respond to dangerous situations rapidly and automatically. Reflex actions do not involve conscious thought. So it's something that we're not thinking about. So we're not aware that we're thinking about it. The nervous system responds to stimuli, which are events or things, via a reflex arc. Some examples of reflexes are blinking, sneezing, dropping hot objects. For example, if you touch something that's really hot, you'll automatically drop it. So how does the central nervous system respond to stimuli? It will respond via a reflex arc. So reflex actions allow us to respond to dangerous situations quickly and effectively, automatically. For reflex actions, the nervous system responds to stimuli, which are events or things, via the reflex arc. So, what are the components of a reflex arc? So we have a stimulus, which is a change in the environment to which the body needs to respond. And this stimulus is detected by a receptor. Receptors are found all over our body. So in our skin, in our blood vessels, everywhere. They detect the change in the environment and start a signaling process within the body. The signal is then picked up by a neuron, which is a nerve cell. The neurons are found all over our body as well. And there are three types of neuron. The sensory neuron, which carries a signal in the form of an electrical impulse to the central nervous system, or the CNS. The relay neuron is found within the CNS, this is the brain and spinal cord, and this will relay the electrical impulse from the sensory neuron to the appropriate motor neuron. And the motor neuron is the third type of neuron, which carries the electrical impulse from the CNS to an effector, which is a muscle or gland. And this effector will bring about an action in response to the change in the internal or external environment. So an appropriate response to something that has happened. For example, you've touched a hot object, the appropriate response is to let go of it. And this response is any action that helps the organism to avoid the harmful situation. So let's have a recap. What is the name of the muscle or gland that brings about an action in response to the change in the internal or external environment? That is an effector. So let's have a recap of the components of the reflex arc. So the first thing we have is a stimulus, which is any change in the environment to which the body needs to respond. We then have the neurons, which are found all over the body and detect changes and initiate a signaling thing within the body. And there are three types of neuron: the sensory, the relay, and the motor neuron. So we can test human reaction time and see what affects it in a practical experiment. So for this experiment, what you can do is you can get a ruler, you hold it in a certain place, you drop the ruler and you catch it, and you can measure how long it has taken you to catch that again. And you can also see the distance on the ruler. Caffeine and exercise are factors that could affect human reaction time. So the steps in the practical with the ruler are: so 1, hold the ruler vertically from one end. The test subject should have their thumb and finger on either side of the ruler at the 0 centimetre mark. So number 2, you drop the ruler. So the subject, which is the student for example, should try to catch it between their thumb and forefinger as fast as possible. You then note down the distance from the 0 centimetre mark that the ruler travels before the subject catches it. You can then use a table to convert this distance into a reaction time. Then repeat the experiment on a subject who's just had a coffee or has just done exercise, and then you can compare these reaction times to see what the effect is. So in this experiment, the independent variable is whether or not the subject has had caffeine or has exercised. And the dependent variable is the subject's reaction time, because the dependent variable is the thing that you measure, and the independent variable is the thing that you change in the experiment. Let's have a recap. What would the dependent variable be? The dependent variable would be the subject's reaction time, because that's what you're measuring. So what could the effect of coffee be? So caffeine can reduce your reaction time. And we check this by doing that experiment. So let's have a look at these. So let's have a recap at what reflex actions are. So what are some examples of this? So a knee-jerk response. Something hits you and you're knee-jerk. I'd say that is a reflex action. Sneezing is also a reflex action. For example, you inhale something and your body sneezes to try and get rid of it. Then also blinking is, so you get something in your eye and then you blink to get it out. And walking is not an example of a reflex action because you would do that anyway and it's not for an emergency.